Dorks Like Us, covering the entertainment for you.
Hey, what's up everyone, Foxhound N313 here. Okay, so let's talk about the Switch again. And I want to talk about why the system will be successful. Now, how successful it will be will depend on various factors. But let's look at the worst case scenario for the system. Let's say that all it ends up with is Nintendo's own first party support and the support of Japanese developers. Even with just that, the system can do very well. We all seem to forget about Pokemon. And we seem to forget, and by we I mean other people on the internet, not myself, I haven't forgotten. But we seem to forget that this is a hybrid system, and that Nintendo will no longer have two platforms to develop games for. They'll have one system that all of their development teams can focus on. See, the biggest problem this last generation with the Wii U and the 3DS was that the focus was split. You had some developers that were making games for one system and certain developers that were making games for another. And you had IPs that were only showing up on one system or the other. You know, games like Bayonetta, games like Wonderful 101, those were only on the Wii U. And even when you got into Nintendo's marquee first-party franchises like Mario, you didn't get the same Mario game on both systems. You got two separate Mario games. You had Mario 3D World on the Wii U, and you had Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. And while they looked very similar, they were completely different games. Same thing with Mario Kart 7 and 8. You know, you had two different Mario Karts. Smash Brothers was kind of marketed as the same game, but they had different stages. But this created a scenario in which developers tended to focus more on the 3DS because it was easier to develop for. The system was selling gangbusters pretty early on, starting pretty early on. It didn't do well right out of the gate, but it caught on shortly afterwards, and then it kept selling and selling and selling. Whereas the Wii U didn't at any point. It started off kind of strong and then just sort of fizzled out. But see, this time around that's not going to be the case. I think people are reading into these comments Nintendo is making on the 3DS, saying that they're going to continue to support the 3DS. The 3DS isn't going anywhere. They're not going to continue the 3DS line. What they're saying is they're going to leave the 3DS on the market until it stops selling, because it's still selling. It's still selling. It's a very inexpensive portable that people are still buying. So why would they discontinue it? It wouldn't make any sense. They would lose out on money that way. They're saying that in contrast to what they did with the Wii U. They ceased production on the Wii U just a couple of months ago, meaning that the system is dead. The last game that's coming to the system is going to be Zelda Breath of the Wild. They may come out with a 3DS Mini or something like that, like some sort of miniature revision, but you're not going to get a successor. I doubt you'll get a revision either, but if you're going to get anything at all, that would be it. So it's just going to be the Nintendo Switch. And all the IPs that were split between the two systems, and all the developers that were split between the two systems this past generation, can now come together over one platform. Meaning there's a very good chance that the Switch may end up getting a new Pokemon game every year. I think it's more likely that it'll be every other year, but you never know. I mean, if Ubisoft can do it, you know, I'm sure Game Freak could do it too. But look at Pokemon Sun and Moon. That was, what, the third iteration of Pokemon on the 3DS. Supposedly outdated hardware. And it was the most pre-ordered game in Nintendo's history. I think Pokemon Go had a lot to do with that. It helped increase the popularity of the mainline games, which I was actually kind of surprised to see that happen. But I think that actually turned out to be the case. Pokemon's got a lot of power behind it. And you're going to have Pokemon, you're going to have Fire Emblem, which has already been confirmed. You're going to have a Smash Brothers, whether that be a port of 4 or a brand new game altogether. You're going to have Mario Kart 8. You're going to have all these big heavy hitting franchises showing up on this one system. And you're going to get sequels and new iterations and new IPs and spin-offs and all this other stuff. For people out there worrying about long software droughts, worry not. And that's not to say you won't get software droughts from Nintendo, period. There will still be some there. I mean, it is console-like hardware. It does take time to develop for. But it's not going to be nowhere near as bad as it was with the Wii U. If it is, there's something seriously wrong over there. But the system will sell off of those marquee franchises that Nintendo has. And they'll have the Japanese third parties there to sort of fill in the blanks. And now those games aren't system sellers on their own. They're not games that capture people's attention on their own. But as sort of supplementary titles to what Nintendo's offering, those will help out a lot. Because they've done pretty well on the 3DS. And those Japanese developers, they're looking for a new portable platform to develop for, and they're going to have that with the Switch. And it's going to be cheaper by comparison to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One to develop for, so they're going to be all over that. Plus, it's going to have a huge following in their home market of Japan. So you're going to have great Japanese support, and you're going to have great first-party support at the very minimum. And just with that alone, the system can do very well. I'm talking 30, 40, 50 million. I mean, if the 3DS has sold 50 million and the Switch gets that kind of support, it can do just as well. You can ignore all this crap about how the smartphone market or the mobile market has eclipsed the portable gaming market. It's a load of crap. It's just a little narrative spun by the mainstream media because they don't like portables. That's all it really boils down to. I know it sounds like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory stuff, but you just look at how much they went after portables over the past 4 or 5 years, and you look at the evidence, and you start to see some disparities there. But the Vita failed because of Sony. The 3DS did not fail. It amazes me even to this day how the media still downplays the success of the 3DS. It's incredible. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and defend everything Nintendo does. You can talk about the launch lineup. Launch lineups are never really that good. You go back to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, most of what filled out their lineup was cross-generation multi-platform games, which to me don't count, and like 1 or 2 exclusives apiece. The launches weren't that impressive, and that's historically always been the case with consoles. You've had some exceptions there, but the PS4 and Xbox One sold well anyway, or at least the PlayStation 4 did early on. It's still doing well. A, because Microsoft really screwed up that E3 when they announced their systems, and B, Sony had a much more impressive showing at their conference. They got games there that got people excited. Nothing that was going to be at launch, but games that were coming down the line, like a Final Fantasy VII remake that got people wanting to buy the console early on in anticipation for what was to come. Now with Nintendo, looking at their launch lineup, they got like 5 or 6 games, possibly more that can be announced between now and then. I don't know. But all it takes is one big game. And if you're these third parties, I mean, Nintendo obviously shouldn't put up any of their other big first-party franchises there at launch up against Zelda, because those games, any of their other games, I don't think would do that well. Or the 2 games would just cut into each other's sales, which would be just as bad. And if you're a third party, why would you put out any big games at launch when you know Zelda's going to be there? You have to look at this thing realistically. And you have to have some intellectual honesty. Like I said, the launches of the other current gen consoles weren't that impressive, but nobody seemed to bat an eye at that. Just kind of brushed off like, oh yeah, well, what are you going to do? But when Nintendo does it, you know, the internet just gets its panties in a bunch. It's like, okay, why is Nintendo held to such a high standard? You know, they should all be on sort of equal footing when it comes to holding them accountable. At least in my eyes. I mean, I know Nintendo's been around a lot longer in this business and everything. They're kind of the granddaddy of the industry in some ways, but even still, come on. Everyone makes mistakes. If it seems like they haven't learned from their mistakes. If we get a year into this and the Switch isn't doing well, then it's time to start, asking questions. But to condemn this thing before it's even hit the market, I mean, come on, people. I mean, I know you got to make your money, you got to have your clicks and all that, but a little honesty never hurt, and a little let's wait and see never hurt. And there are legitimate things to be concerned about, as far as like, will you be able to import your virtual console purchases from the Wii U and the 3DS, or will you have to pay for them again or pay a discounted fee? Things like that. That's the things I'm curious about, and Nintendo is being very coy about, which, depending on how you look at it, could be concerning. And there's things like the online, which they could mishandle. That's the things we should be focusing on and asking questions about. In terms of what's going to be successful and what's not, there's no way of knowing until it hits the market. I don't know that anyone saw the Wii coming or thought that was going to be as big of a hit as it was, but it was. So I mean, there you go. Just a couple, 4 or 5 years back, everyone was saying, "Oh, there's no market left for portables or dedicated portables. The smartphone market has taken over." And look, the 3DS sold more than almost all of Nintendo's home consoles, with the exception of the Wii. So, if you're going to call that a failure, then Nintendo's entire history as a company has been a failure. I mean, come on. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and hit that like button if you like the video. Subscribe to us if you haven't already, and stay tuned for more content from dorks like us. This is FoxHounderN313 signing off. God bless.